Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Move for a Movement. I have with me here today founder and board members from Erase the Stigma Through Dance, which does amazing work addressing, as the title of the organization would imply, addressing the stigma around mental health through the vehicle of dance. And I'm just going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves. So first on my screen, I'll start with you, Nina.
Hi, I'm Nina Matson Puckett, and I am the founder of Erase the Stigma Through Dance.
Go right ahead, Tzipporah.
Hi, I'm Tzipporah Gerson-Miller. I'm a board member, and I'm also a licensed clinical psychotherapist in Atlanta, Georgia, and a certified yoga therapist and a former professional dancer.
Hi, I'm Debbie Smith Berlin, and I'm also a board member.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you all for taking the time to come here today. I know you all have so much going on, so I really appreciate you carving out that little bit of time to tell us more about what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so jumping right into what your organization does, I always love to read the mission statement or something along those lines, just to kind of give a clear view of what a company or an organization does as a jumping off point for the rest of the conversation. So, Erase the Stigma Through Dance educates or challenges the thinking around mental health through the vehicle of dance. So I would love to hear more about what that work actually entails, what that looks like day to day, month to month, week to week. Yeah.
So our actual mission statement is, just because I think this will help clarify, is
Thank you. Yeah, I have some issues in my document, I think.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Is
Google
to
issues. Go ahead.
engage communities in mental health awareness by fusing mental illness advocacy and education with the art of dance. So, and that is through events, classes, and yearly symposiums. So we started off with mainly just social media and a blog, which is pretty much what we exist as of right now. And we just released our website. So it sort of tailors and gives a little bit of information onto what our programs are. We're just now starting the development of our two main programs. One is called REACH, and that is a program where we are collaborating with Oklahoma Movement, which is another nonprofit organization in Tulsa, and creating classes that are movement-based to help with mental health for people in the community. And then we also have our sort of flagship program, which is our speaker program, which that will include smaller events and the yearly symposium where we bring together licensed professional counselors, there's licensed professional social workers or psychotherapists, and then also have movement performances, movement classes, just kind of making an event surrounding mental health awareness, but using dance. So engaging people in classes and movement exploration, and then also maybe having some performances and some keynote speaking by counselors and professionals. So
amazing. All beautiful stuff. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear more about how the organization came to be and how that mission took shape. All of you, go ahead.
Debbie and I actually, it came out of a lot of conversations between Debbie and I, and also Laura Lee Dick, who's also on our board, and Tzipporah. But really all of the board members I sort of talked to about this, but Debbie and I is where it really started. And I was telling her that I wanted to do something related to dance and mental health, but I didn't want it to be a dance company. I wanted it to be more of a platform, and we wanted the organization to be surrounded by mental health. So like, for example, we're not classified actually as a performing arts organization, we're a mental health organization, because that's the key to all of this is what we're really focusing on. I don't want to talk too much. So Debbie, did you want to talk a little bit about how we kind of naturally just spoke over the course of, I think it was about a year or two.
Yeah, maybe really just a year and a half, something like that. Just conversations back and forth. ruminating about, what it might look like.
Right.
Came up with the mission statement, and then Nina came up with something, brought it in. We discussed it, fine-tuned it. It was just a natural progression of ideas. Okay.
And we really took our time. Like, it wasn't anything where we were like, we want to do this right now. And I started the social media, and I wasn't even really exactly sure what I wanted it to be. I just wanted it to be a place where we could be open about this. So we've done some things with the social media, like had some different people create based on the idea of containment during the pandemic. And then most recently, we're in the process right now of releasing information about some works that choreographers have created based on mental illness, and we have a blog attached to that. So I know we just had Kate post today. Kate's been kind of in charge of that. And we're really just starting to get going this year with our classes, and November of next year is going to be our first symposium. So we actually have a board meeting tonight, but we're just kind of getting everything kind of started. But it was very organic and very slow moving. We didn't really, we wanted it to be really succinct, whatever it was going to be. It's just means too much to us, because I went through the schizoaffective. So I wanted to share my story, but it's not about me, but about what I went through, to be able to share with others and make others feel like they're not alone, and they can share in their struggles and move together and heal together as a community.
Yeah, part of the blog stuff that Nina and who helps you with that, Nina?
Laura Lee writes the blog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, had to do with expressing various stories. And I think whenever people have a platform to share stories and to tell, what they've been through, what they've experienced, and share those experiences, it helps people who may be going through the same experiences be able to find out that maybe it's more normal than they think. This is more acceptable. It's not something that needs to be hidden away.
I was thinking that same thing when you started to say that about when we bring these stories forward, when they're not in the shadows. That's, I think, such a powerful tool for breaking down stigma.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is that people don't realize they're not alone.
Right.
And the dynamics around the stories of like, it's not your fault. This is brain chemistry. This is just the reality of life. This is just something that happened that's not your fault. And they can see that. If they can see that in other people's stories, maybe they can spread that same compassion to themselves and be more open speaking about it. And that's how I think that change can start to happen. And art, as a vehicle for that, of art just being such a powerful storytelling vehicle, and to pull back those curtains on different issues and to see it in a new way.
Yeah.
And I also noticed, Nina, as you're speaking about, as you said, you really took that time, and you're passionate about something and you want to do it right. Like, what's really the rush? And, because we live in this like urgency culture, right? But when you can take that time to be really mindful and create something that can really do what you want it to do and be something you can really be proud of, I think that's really awesome. And
for people that know me, it's strange because I'm somebody that jumps in like 155%. And Debbie knows me, like with my Jersey Girl Bath Company, like I make a lot of mistakes and I go crazy. And then not crazy, but I do these things and then I have to step back. And with this, it's been completely different. It's been, I've never moved so slow in a project,
That's so interesting.
It's so meaningful, and I know it can touch others and help others. So I want to make sure we're all doing it right and from a good-hearted place.
Right.
Yeah. And taking time to breathe. It gives space for things to grow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I referenced this a little bit. We've all kind of referenced it a little, but what about dance and movement in particular makes it such a powerful, effective vehicle for this work? of breaking down mental health stigma? I would love to hear what you all think about that question, that matter.
Well, I mean, I think, the arts, like both historically, have been such a vehicle for bringing community together. Like, even if we just look at, anthropological research, if you look at how communities responded, like when somebody was suffering, right, they would bring that person to the middle of the circle, to the middle of community, and the healing would take place in community. So there really is a really rich tradition, I think, with the arts as tools for community-based healing. Like, if you even just look at the aspects and components of like rituals in our culture, they mark time, they mark passages of time, they're containers, they're oftentimes, there's choreography. I mean, if you even just look at like a wedding, I mean, that's choreographed, and so I think there's just such a rich tradition of the arts being vehicles and tools for healing. People can step in and out of the imaginal realm. People can, when it's an act of embodiment, right? And so much of suffering, whether it's trauma, whether it's a mental health challenge, a lot of the times, one of the components and characteristics is a lack of embodiment and being so disconnected from the body and so unaware of the body's cues and the body's language and the body's narrative, right? And so dance and movement is such a profound way of restoring a person's agency, right? Giving them that sense of agency in their body again. And when it's done in community, right, where people have an opportunity to be witnessed and to be seen in a non-judgmental space, right, is quite powerful for the human condition.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought forward those rituals, almost like rites of passage sometimes that are celebratory too, like you named weddings. Like people get up and dance at a wedding. It's these ways movement is embedded in our emotions and things we experience in life in ways that we don't even always acknowledge, but they're there and they're important.
Yeah, I've seen, like, especially, I mean, I'm just naming one community in particular, like in the recovery community, right? So a lot of the time, folks who are in substance abuse recovery, one of the biggest reasons folks relapse is because they get discharged from these stabilization units and there is no community, right? They just discharge them and there is no community for them to follow back up with, right? And so what happens a lot of the time is they kind of reintegrate, right? And they are yet again isolated. There's no community, and hence that can lead to, sort of a relapse of suffering, so to speak. And so that, I mean, that happens a lot when we don't have community, when we don't have other people. We're not meant to heal in isolation of one another. So, and dance is, I mean, it's beautiful to watch a solo dancer, but when you are in an ensemble or on stage with a bunch of people, or even in a room with a bunch of people moving and dancing and sweating, there's, in my experience, there's always a lot of joy, and not a whole lot of suffering there. So.
Yeah, that community aspect of art, as you noted, it's just like every time there's a performance, there's a community there with every show that didn't exist before and most likely won't exist again. Just like the unique group of people who are there.
Yeah.
Just this organic community that evolves, a community because they experience this profound thing together.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing that live art offers.
Yeah. I think also, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tzipporah. Or was that Debbie?
It was me.
Go ahead.
From a shamanic standpoint, it's like, I think that it also provides grounding and balance, and the movement helps you release things that are stored in the body, an actual physical release of past trauma. And by releasing that trauma, it gives space for healing as well. And you normally do breath work and bring consciousness to dance. So when you're bringing that, it's like you kind of replace that almost like with joy and gratitude. And that is the powerful force for healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that indigenous and more Eastern cultures just have known for centuries upon centuries, and Western science is beginning to find out. Like with fascia, like there's a lot of research on fascia that we're learning more about it. It's like issues in the tissues. Yeah, right. It's like these tissues that are in us, in our fascia, that we're just learning more about. But yeah, the older, I might say in some ways wiser cultures have known these things, right?
Right.
But we, because of the way we work, we got to prove it with data.
Yeah.
That's the way our work works now.
I think we actually knew it before, forgot it, pressed it down to put all this science on top of it. And now it's like coming back to the surface.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
I think also with movement, just that it's something that everybody can do, and even though I know people will say like, well, I can't do that. I'm not a dancer. It's like, but you move, you move. I mean, I get the majority of my choreography, sometimes driving down the road, seeing people in conversation, or just watching and observing others and watching their gestures. I mean, that to me is some of the most interesting choreography, is gestural, is things that people can relate to. And I think if we all think of ourselves as movers, we all can dance because we all can move, or majority of us can move, that are so fortunate to be able to move. I mean, some people don't have any legs and have limited mobility, or, but think about when you break your leg and not that I've ever broken my leg, but if I did, I wouldn't feel totally myself. I'd feel like, well, I'm not able to move a part of my body. I'm not able to express that part of my body, And I think about people who are quadriplegic and paraplegic, and I think how they must struggle with just not being able to move fully and express fully, Something I think about often.
And the challenge of living in a world that's not necessarily designed for their capabilities and needs.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a thing to address for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that idea of like, oh, I can't dance. It's like, when did we learn that? That's a learned idea.
It's such a learned idea.
Yeah. Imposed from culture. Because like someone says the word dance, a lot of people picture a ballerina doing 32 fouettes.
Yeah, a tutu.
So that is like a drop in the ocean of what dance is.
Right. Or in my case, no, I was going to say, or in my case, when I used to tell people I was a dancer, they thought stripper too. That's another thing they would think. I'm not even kidding. They would think stripper. Yeah.
Right. And the sexualization of the body in dance and the puritanical founding of this nation. And yeah, that's we could have a whole other conversation about that probably. But yeah, there is that. So it's either, the pure white ballerina or the, exotic sexualized,
Right.
Or they ask like, well, but what do you really do? Right. Like, okay, so you dance, but what do you really like? What is your real job? Right. Like that. I remember getting that a lot too, so there is definitely, some, I think there's some misinformation in our society about a dancer's worth or what it actually entails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
also
that,
think it can be taken from you. I was having a conversation with my husband this morning, and he always says he can't sing. And he'll tell a story of when he was like, I don't know, like fifth grade or something like that. And a teacher actually told him that she would pass him in the class if he didn't sing during their choir, performance. And I told him this morning, I said, I think that actually robbed singing and the joy of singing from you. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
that whenever
possible.
you're going through adolescence, oftentimes people will rob the dance from you because they're like, this is the way we dance right now. And if you don't dance like that, then you don't know how to dance.
Or if you don't look a certain way and you don't have a certain body type, you're not a dancer. You have to look this specific way to be a dancer. And that's so not true.
Exactly.
Robs
And
so
it
many people.
it robs joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It robs them. And it takes joy, because dance, singing, the exuberance of art. When you pull art from people, I think you really rob a lot of joy from their lives. It lessens their existence.
Yeah, early people, Tzipporah mentioned anthropology, looking from an anthropological lens. Just as we hunt and gathered food as early humans, we drew on cave walls, we danced around a fire,
Yeah.
eating, and just these things that we think of being fundamentally human. Art is just as much that, I would argue.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that I do think is beginning to change, both within the concert dance field, about opening to other body types, bodies with different needs and abilities, and also in wider culture with things like TikTok and just like even like learning a little dance and putting it like, hey, you're dancing and having fun. I think that's great. Like a lot of issues with social media, I'll say that, but these different ways that culture has opened up to dance and movement. Maybe not necessarily more, but in more widespread ways, perhaps. Yeah. So something that I was speaking with Tzipporah and Debbie at another point, Tzipporah brought up something that I thought was interesting, this tension between the individual attending to their own well-being and the structures at hand, the larger structures, and what their responsibility is. So the tension of like, how much is it your responsibility? How much do these systems need to accommodate and make possible, lead to support well-being, mental health or otherwise? Yeah, I'd love to hear what you all think about that dynamic between the individual and the larger structures.
Well, I think there needs to be more accessibility. And I think that should come from the larger structure, but there needs to be an opportunity to provide resources so that the individual who needs resources can go and access these things.
Right.
But then it's also up to the individual at the same time to be able to bring themselves to go to these things. Like, I don't know if this kind of is kind of like what you're thinking about, but I have this friend and she didn't want to come. She wanted to come to a dance class, but was so anxious that she didn't come. And I just wish that I would have made it more clear that it was a non-judgmental environment and it was just a movement class. And so in that instance, there was a resource available, but the individual didn't have personal resources to be able to, not personal resources, but she was holding herself back. And I didn't know what I could have done to make her, not make her, but I knew that she would be upset about it, and she told me afterwards that she was upset that she didn't come. And then I felt bad and I didn't know how do we fix this? You know what I mean? How do we make it so that somebody feels comfortable enough to come and take a dance class or to come and be involved in the community where there's being, resources are available for mental health or for movement or for whatever you need in whatever industry. So that's a hard question for me to answer. I'd have to ponder that more.
I think I think you put that very well, that the structures need to make it possible. But in
Right.
terms of the individual, you can lead a horse to water, but they have to drink. Like the individual does have to take the initiative, take that step. And I can understand people at some point might not be at that place. So I can
Right.
also understand that.
Totally.
You know, they might not be ready.
Completely understandable.
Mhm.
And just to know that, like, if I offer classes or things like that, and I do this at my massage office too, you know, in our mission statement, we have non-judgmental, nurturing, and supportive environment. And I love that we get lots of a huge diverse group of people that don't look the same, different colors, different shapes, different sizes. And I think that has to do with our mission statement. So I feel like we've done a good job there with that office, with making it clear that this is a safe space to be able to come and receive healing, you know? And I think if we could do that within these larger structures, make it an inviting and safe and warm space where people feel like they can come and they're not going to be judged and they're not going to be made fun of, and they can, you know, express themselves and be able to get something out of the class or get something out of the resource that's being given, you know?
Yeah, and you were talking a little bit before about those voices from the past. You know, in some cases, it's like, even if that is a nurturing environment, a non-judgmental, safe, the person's hearing a voice from, I don't know, a magazine they read, or, you know, even something like that, or, you know, someone in their past that made an ableist comment about people, you know, with mental health difficulties. And that's where that piece, you know, going back to stigma, which, you know, such a part of what your organization does, like, that's where that piece plays in, is we also need to work at that. Like, there are these different things at play that we need to address, like the accessibility, the stigma. So then that person will more likely be at the place where they're like, all right, I'm ready. You know, I'm ready to go get help so I can be the best person I can be.
Right.
Well, I think that is where the community at large and educating them about that is going to play a big role, because if the community learns that this is a normal part of life, that this is a safe thing, that they can extend out and embrace people who are different, then I think that will extend itself out to the individual. So it's like, it's not enough just for me to hear that it's going to be a safe place. I have to internalize that it's going to be a safe place. And within my community is not a safe place, then it's hard for me to internalize that a specific location in my community will be a safe place. And so I think the community outreach aspects of Erase the Stigma, going out, engaging with the community, helping them to understand and bringing about understanding, can help address some of that.
And also and also understanding from the community's perspective what they need, right? Versus going in as outsiders into a community and saying, we think you need this. Really asking the community, what do you all need, right? And how can we be of service in making that happen, right? Like, if I'm going to go to a yoga studio, for example, like, I need to see in their marketing pictures that there are people that look like me, that are my size, that are my shape, that are, you know, like, I need to see that. If I just see a bunch of very thin, sort of Instagram looking yoga models, I'm going to feel very like disenfranchised because they don't look like me. And how do I know that I'm not going to get in there and it's not going to be like an appropriate environment, or it's going to feel like a threatening environment, right? So I think we need to be real mindful. You know, there's accessibility, like, what does that look like, right? If you're offering an all levels class, you better not have a big staircase the first thing people see when they walk in, because, you know, that is that's huge communication right there, when all there is a staircase to get up to the room. And I mean, I've had situations with groups where I've had clients come and they said, I just couldn't get out of my car to come in. I said, okay, but you sat in the parking lot outside the building. Yeah, I sat in my parking lot. Well, great. Maybe next time you'll get out of your car and come and look in the window. And then it's like the next time, oh, I got out of my car and I sat in the lobby, right? Okay, well, that's awesome. Maybe next time you'll come into the class, you know, and maybe they come and they just sit and watch, right? So I think we have to honor and remember that everybody's on their own like individual journey. Some people's mental health stuff is more profound and severe than others. Some people may not be ready to come to a group situation. And I think it's just that as facilitators, we need to just be consistent, showing up consistently every single time. It's creating that predictability and that safety for the consumers or the participants. Offer options. Options is huge. Having options for people, giving them permission, you know, to be and show up in whatever state they are, maybe not wasted. Like I don't allow drunk people in my groups if you're visibly drunk, right? I mean, sometimes I can't tell, but I try to discourage people from being high or drunk when they come to sessions or classes with me. And that's just a safety thing, right? That's safety. But yeah, I mean, we got to give people options. We have to honor where they're at, and we have to always have referrals for people, right? Like a nice book of, or a list of providers in the community that you trust, that you would feel comfortable sending your own family member to. Because if somebody comes up to you and it's like, I'm having debilitating anxiety, I almost couldn't get well, you know, who are, let's see, are you seeing a provider? Do you need a provider? You know, and to have those resources readily accessible, because people will not follow up oftentimes if they don't have a number in their hand. Right? Don't make them do the legwork. Don't tell them, maybe you should go see a therapist, and then make them do all the legwork. To just have some names in your community ready to give to that person.
Love it. Sharing all these trauma sensitive yoga principles that in a lot of ways transfer over to accessible dance when you're doing dance out in the community, you know, outside of the studio setting with 14-year-olds that have been dancing since they were 3 and can do, you know, quadruple pirouettes. And that's such a tiny drop in the bucket of what dance is or can be, you know, if we expand it further. Love it. All right, so it is all so uncertain right now. It's like we thought we were over this COVID thing, and then hi Delta.
I know.
That said, that certainty notwithstanding, I am curious about what's next for the organization. What are some goals you have in mind? What can we look out for, support you with? What's coming next?
So we are working on our self-care classes with Oklahoma Movement. So we developed a curriculum, and I'm still in the process with Jen and some of the other committee members of fine-tuning the curriculum, but we have pretty much a curriculum. And then we're just waiting on hearing about locations and dates, and then we'll have to get teachers, but it should be launched this year. And then, you know, this school year. So I don't know if it's going to be in the fall or if it's going to be in the spring, but we hope to have it at least by the spring. And then our first symposium we have slated for November of 2022. So in a year from now. So that will be our first, that's actually what we're hoping will be our first annual symposium in Tulsa. So, and that's going to be where we have like keynote speaker and lots of different types of classes, and it'll be like a 4 or 5 hour sort of symposium. Yeah, and then just look out for things, you know, on our social media. We may try new things. You know, I was thinking about doing something where people actually speak about you know, maybe asking for videos where people speak about their experience and how dance has maybe helped them. I wanted to maybe do something like that to kind of help end and erase the stigma, is by having people speak about it, you know, and maybe not just dance about it and show work, but maybe actually speak about it. That's something that I'm going to talk to Kate and Laura Lee about, and the board, because I think that would be something nice for social media, even just like a nice 15 or 20-second clip about what they've struggled with maybe and how dance has helped them.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's kind of what you can look out for. And we now have our website. So that's all set. It's erasethroughdance.org. And we have our blog on there, and then just a little bit more information and a donate button. We actually got the donate button too. So we got
Yeah, we'll
everything.
get that all up on social, share the website people can check out. And handles so people can follow for all that wonderful stuff coming down the pike.
Great.
Are those classes in person, virtual, so people can access it, or what does that look like?
Planning on them being in person, but I don't know if we're going to also have the capability to be able to offer it virtually as well. That's something that we're going to talk about, because it's a collaboration with Oklahoma Movement, so we're kind of working together with it, with them. So, but that's definitely something that we can talk about. But I'm thinking that we're going to have an actual space where people can come. That's a large enough space, with masks and things like that,
Great.
so we can social distance and still be able to, get together.
Awesome.
We'll just see how it goes with Delta, because if not, we can do virtual classes and.
Right. Yeah. Folks in Oklahoma, either way, stay tuned for that. All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's sort of all I have to ask. Thank you so much. I want to give you an opportunity, each of you, if there's anything else we didn't hit upon that you feel passionate about saying, you want to throw out, please do. So, or you can say I'm good.
I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, and Debbie and Tzipporah and our entire board. And we have about 51 volunteers. We have a Facebook group that's just with volunteers, and just the outpouring has been really special of people that are wanting to be involved in this organization. So it's been very humbling, and you just realize how many people mental health affects when you start something like this, and you share it with others, and you talk to others, and they feel so connected with it, like they want to be a part of it. And it's because that they're working on it themselves too. We're all working on ourselves. So I just wanted to thank you and Tzipporah and Debbie, obviously, for the opportunity. So
absolutely. And that makes me think, if people would be interested in getting involved, joining the Facebook group, following handles, reaching out, that'd probably be a good way to
absolutely
get in touch, you'd say. Great.
Or just email, or however you want to get in touch.
Awesome.
All
right. Anything, last words to share before we say goodbye, Debbie and or Tzipporah?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure. Yeah. Awesome to talk to you all.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
My pleasure. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation, maybe share it with someone who you think also would enjoy it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Really helps out the channel, spread it to more people interested in this work of dance and social change, social justice. And we will see you next time. Thanks so much, all.
Bye.
Bye.